I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And I believe to the core of my being that this country will be destroyed by people like you who think you are doing good while you divide into separate different categories and we pit against each other.
Carrying on the legacy of Andrew Breitbart, this is Breitbart News Daily with your host, Mike Slater.
America's the greatest country in the world. Good morning. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Welcome back to it. This is the book. You must buy this to understand what is going on and what is working against all of us in our country. The book is called Controligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. And that is not an overstatement. Read it and it will all make sense. It is written by the Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute, Seamus Bruner. Mr. Bruner, how are you, sir?
Mike, it is great to be with you.
Well done here in this book. Well done. I go into this argument skeptical, with a healthy skepticism. And page 2, you pretty much crush that to pieces. Can I read the opening quote that you share?
I'd love you to. That'd be great.
It's David Rockefeller, memoir, 2002. Some even believe we're part of a secret club working against the best interest of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. And then you, on page 2, you get to this thing that is dystopian as can be, called the Good Club. Why did you start here?
Yeah, that quote by David Rockefeller, when I read that, first off, I didn't believe that could be a real quote. I had to go and get David Rockefeller's memoir and look it up, and sure enough, right there in black and white, if that's the charge, conspiring against the United States, he stands guilty and is not just guilty, he's proud of it. I was stunned. And the word club there in brackets is actually cabal, but the publisher did not want to publish the word. They're like, that's just going to sound too crazy. So I said,
hold on. This is so funny. I'm so glad you said that. You put the word club in brackets, which means usually when I see brackets, I usually think someone put that in there for clarification's sake. But you're saying the real word is cabal.
It was to water it down because I didn't want it to sound too nuts because the guy sounds crazy as it is.
Unreal. All right, so what is this Good Club?
Right, so the Good Club is like the most exclusive club in the world. There's about 15 members of it. George Soros, Bill Gates, David Rockefeller, Ted Turner, Oprah Winfrey of all people. And they get together in May 2009 to figure out how they can pool their resources to spend on priorities that are important to them. And this really precedes all of the climate change hysteria that you see today by about, if it's 15 years ago. They say in May 2009, now the context here is Obama has just gotten into office. Yes. They've spent a great deal of money to get him there. And they want to figure out what can we do. Let's figure out, they call it an umbrella cause for all of us to pour our resources into. And so they say that cause is overpopulation. They're all very concerned that there's too many of us around breathing their air. And out of that really grows a lot of this climate change hysteria, which is a central theme in the book.
Wow. Why? Where did the overpopulation thing come from? Because that's an old thing from the 60s. So how did that come back around for them? Why, it was Bill Gates, right? Why was he so concerned about this?
Yeah, it's a great question. Bill Gates has said time and again, many times since then, that there's just far too many people on the planet, and it's catastrophic. And really, you see, book documents from the 60s forward. You had the climate, or you had global cooling. First it's overpopulation, then it's global cooling, then it's global warming and the ozone layer, and eventually they arrive at, well, climate change is perfect because weather is climate change. So, I think I saw a Reuters piece recently where there was a lightning strike, and they said it was climate change. I'm like, really? A lightning strike? But, what the book proves, I think, in great detail is that climate change is the method of getting very rich and also gathering more and more control over the masses.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to get to the chapter more pain, more profit in a second. But let's go one step deeper foundationally. Why do these people? What is it about them? Why do they want to control every aspect of our lives?
Well, I think the most simple and surface level reason is with control comes profit. You saw that especially in the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic, these guys on the cover of the book almost doubled their net worth in some cases. I mean, Zuckerberg almost doubled his net worth and added trillions of dollars to the billionaire wealthy class, while the middle and lower classes lost just about the same. So as we were locked down, as our businesses were shut down, all of their businesses were allowed to operate unimpeded. So when you can control the economy like that, that just shows how profitable it can be. But I also show that, I mean, these guys have like God complexes on steroids. So there's a great quote from a Professor Wiesenbaum from MIT who says that the tech guys, they build these worlds, these digital worlds, whether it's Microsoft or Facebook, and because, when they turn the dials in those worlds, things react, things happen for them. They think they can do it in the real world. The problem is, we don't want to be controlled.
Yes, you're right. It's in the worlds they operate in, it's zeros and ones. And you're right. They think they can just turn the dials and knobs and we can react the same way, but we're not. That's not how that works. Wow, that's interesting. Tucker Carlson had the theory that ever since we dropped the bomb, the nuclear bomb, our world leaders think that they are gods and they can do whatever they want. You throw that in with the tech revolution, you can definitely see how that God complex would grow. That's interesting. I wanted to ask you how successful these people have been, these controligarchs. But by your first metric of making money, there's no, they're impossibly successful with how much money they made. So how many resources are we talking about of how much money these people have?
Well, and to be clear, it says the billionaire class, but we're really talking about the 1% of the 0.1% in this book. Men like Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and Soros. They've got over $1 trillion. Just 15 members in the book have over $1 trillion in personal net worth. Now, if you include the corporations which they control, we're talking over 10 trillion, really closer to 20 trillion. You bring in BlackRock, $20 trillion. I mean, these are unfathomable sums, but much more than the GDP of the United States or China. So they've got more economic power than the U.S. and China, which are the two, obviously, wealthiest countries in the world. And then it's really more than money that they control. You see this with the big tech influences in elections. They can steer all of society.
Talking with Seamus Bruner. He's the Director of Research at the Government Accountability Institute. And the book is called Controligarchs. Please buy it right now, and we can make sense of these people. Let's go through some of the people. So let's do Bill Gates, right? He's. I feel like that's the first name people come to mind. He obviously was in the forefront of the COVID thing and everything. And I'm like, there's all these conspiracies about him buying all the farmland and stuff like that, and it's brushed aside as, Seamus is just diversifying his investments, et cetera. What do we need to know about Bill Gates?
Yeah, I mean, everybody thinks of Bill Gates, at least prior to the pandemic, as the software salesman, not sure why he's investing so much in medical technologies. Must be because he's just a good guy and wants people to live, which, as an aside, doesn't really jive with the fact that he thinks we're overpopulated. But nonetheless, he gets into global health really when he sets up his foundation in right around 2000, and he funds all this health stuff. He becomes a health expert, and now he's a farmer. So on the farm stuff, it's not just a diversification of his holdings. He's been investing in all of these, alternative proteins and alternative fertilizers, and so these companies hold the new patents, new monopolies over proteins and over food and over the fertilizers, and then he uses his influence to ban traditional forms of farming. When you hear Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say that the earth is going to end in 12 years because of cow flatulence, she didn't just think that up or dream that up. That comes from a white paper funded by a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or a World Economic Forum group. And banning meats, I mean, you see there's actually, I mean, Ireland right now is about to slaughter tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cows to save the planet. But meanwhile, these chemical-filled new forms of protein, those are going to be just fine. And they use, by the way, more energy than cows do, in terms of climate change and carbon. But so he wants to ban his competition, but he only starts pushing that after he's secured his investments.
Yes. I'd like to emphasize the point. Why does the guy who think the biggest problem is we're overpopulated focus so much on health, medicine, and clean water for the third world? One of those doesn't work, Seamus.
Right. It's very counterintuitive. I mean, Melinda Gates has a quote where she explains, it seems counterintuitive, but it's really not. In their estimation, if they can save more babies in the third world, then mothers will decide to have less babies. That's the calculus. Yes. Yeah, so they'll stop having children if they can control, there it is again, the number of babies that they can have. So that's why they also fund a lot of, quote, maternal health, which is really abortion, birth control, and contraceptive type stuff.
You have a whole chapter in here about the rise of lab-grown meats and alternative proteins, as they're called. That's the eating of bugs. It is interesting that Winston Churchill predicted this, but I don't think did he do that with glee as the Controligarchs today do?
No, I don't believe the great Winston Churchill envisioned us eating, chemicals from a lab as a good thing.
But people today too, everything's fake. It's just another example of how, and we can save this for another day, but one of my rants that we're just being fake. Everything is being pushed on us all the time, everywhere, in every facet of our life, including food. So what's the appeal to food? Does it all go controlling your food and faker and faker food, lab-grown chemical food, in quotes? What's the push of that? Does that just go back to global warming, or is there something even else there?
Yeah, it's something else. It's the same thing with the climate change, the green technologies, whether it's solar or wind. Basically, if you think of it in terms of pharmaceuticals, which he's also heavily invested in, when there's a name brand drug, a new drug comes out, it is very, very expensive, which means very, very profitable to the person who created that drug. And then after 20 years or so, the drug goes generic, and it goes from $80 a pill to $2 a pill. Same thing with food, and same thing with energy. So oil and gas has been around for 100 years. The patents on most of the processes for extracting and refining and transporting have all run out, and it's very cheap. That's why it's cheap and abundant. Same thing with cows. I mean, it's the oldest form of protein out there. It's relatively inexpensive to farm cows. However, these new technologies, these new proteins, and these new solar, wind, nuclear, which Gates is heavily invested in, those are all patented processes. And for the next 20 to 50 years, they'll be able to refine the process, get new patents. It keeps competitors out. That's the thing you see with these guys time and again, is they don't like competition. They want to hold monopolies. And so with the proteins, when now they're banning the competition, that equals an enormous amount of money. I mean, food, agriculture, $1 trillion industry, energy, $1 trillion industry. And if you can corner it by claiming that you're solving climate change, well, you're going to be set for life and many generations after you.
Seamus Bruner, Director of Research, Government Accountability Institute. The book is called Control. I'm not done, by the way. I just want to make sure everyone knows the book we're talking about. That sounded like I was wrapping it up. I'm not. I have tons more questions if you have time. Controligarchs, exposing the billionaire class, their secret deals, and the globalist plot to dominate your life. Controligarchs. Go buy it now. Seamus Bruner, Seamus. This quote right here. So again, if you're skeptical of this, if you're like, Seamus seems, you're connecting dots that aren't there, Seamus. You know what I mean? You're going a little too far. Let's not be crazy here. This is George Soros, 2004. I fancied myself as some kind of god. If truth be known, I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control. It's a sort of disease when you consider yourself some kind of god, the creator of everything. But I feel comfortable about it now, since I began to live it out. Kidding me?
Yeah, that's one of the best quotes, and that's really how I started this. Like, I know that this is, I myself thought a lot of this stuff was conspiracy theory sounding, but then I, started digging deeper. Went through, just mountains and mountains of corporate records and memoirs. I got all their memoirs, read through their memoirs, and found that quote, and that was a stunning Soros quote.
I would say. So, what is the open society that we need to be on the lookout for from Soros?
Yeah, Soros has been a philanthropist, so-called philanthropist, for decades, probably as long as anybody in the book, if not longer. The Open Society Institute, it sounds great, and he's really, really good at naming his foundations and entities and dark money groups names that sound good, like who could be against democracy, the democracy partners, who could be against an open society. The problem with that is George Soros does not want an open society. He's the kingpin of one of the largest dark money networks in politics, and nobody elected George Soros, and he's making sure that the will of the people, whether it's in presidential elections, the 2024 election, for example, whether it's in your local prosecutor races, he's even in, buying off the sheriff races. And if you think about having a Soros-funded sheriff, that's not good.
Oh, man. So that is so obvious. Like, we all know the DA's story by now. You're right. Why wouldn't he do that with sheriffs? Think of that, of course. But you can see how effective he is with all this stuff. So, like, where else do we see his footprint, George Soros?
Yeah, well, the sheriff races, your last guest, Kent, was spot on with everything he was talking about with the subverting the will of and using coercive powers of the government. Imagine your sheriff executing red flag laws on, someone who's not actually a threat, or a lot of people who are not actually a threat. Anybody who attends a Donald Trump rally, maybe. So that, the sheriff is a big one. And then, we actually, he's funding the efforts to get Donald Trump's name off the ballots. That's not very open or democratic. And then, the thing that's probably the most frightening about George Soros, the guy is 93. You look at him and you're like, okay, he can't be around much longer. But no, not so fast. He's got a young, mid-30s-year-old son who, if he lives to his father's age, will be pouring a $25 billion empire into our elections for the next 50 years.
Let's talk about Elon Musk. So I think a lot of conservatives even have put their guard down about Elon Musk because he has free speech, sort of, whatever. At least he promotes, did the Twitter thing, and he's kind of a goofy guy, and he likes Tucker Carlson, and he, whatever. He has like some conservative-y kind of things, but I think Elon Musk wants to literally rule the world, and he wants to control the high ground, or at least he is going to control literal high ground by controlling all the satellites. Right. So I think Elon's a dangerous guy. How should we view him?
Yeah, he's got the satellites up above the atmosphere. He's got the Boring Company underneath your cities. I applaud Elon Musk for what he's done with Twitter, at least for now, making it a much more free speech platform. And he says some great things. He just the other day he posted a Hayek quote, and I was like, yeah, go Elon. It was on a meme with a girl in a bikini, so that was kind of funny. But he's definitely got some technocrat DNA in him. And we followed it back through his mother to his grandfather, who was basically the founder of the technocracy movement in Canada. He got kicked out of Canada. This is Elon's grandfather. The technocracy movement essentially is an inherently anti-democratic movement that says that the engineers and the scientists need to run society. The peasants and the unwashed masses are not quite smart enough to make decisions for themselves. So you can definitely see that in some of the things that Elon Musk is prioritizing. One of the examples in the book is Neuralink, this brain microchip company. And, of course, it's billed as a way to cure paralysis and, help people with neurological problems. But, he's rather gleeful when he talks about the idea of sending psychic text messages. And, some of the shocking stuff is the test subjects of Neuralink, these monkeys and other animals. Thousands of them have had to be euthanized after getting the chip implanted in their brain. The scientists will find the monkeys in the cell chewing off their fingers and bashing their skulls against the cage. And so they have to euthanize these poor monkeys. But Elon says not to worry. They get a banana smoothie after their trials. So,
well, yeah, what a metaphor for us.
The thing with that is, Biden's FDA just approved Neuralink for FDA. The FDA just approved it for human trials.
Yeah, but we'll be told the same thing. Like he'll be successful, and it'll be completely mind controlling in every way. Like that's the thing I'm most horrified by our future Neuralink, by the way. And we'll be fine because we'll be, courtside tickets to every game or whatever, and we'll be just like stupid bread and circuses, and we'll be totally mind controlled. It's your chapters on. Listen, everything's shocking in this book, but the chapters on technology, to me, are just terrifying. This idea, first of all, Microsoft has a patent called the 666 patent. Like they call it that. So it's like, what are we doing here? Like what a glitch in the matrix that is, that this is called the 666 patent. What is this idea of human livestock? What do you mean human livestock?
Yeah, well, Microsoft doesn't brag about it being called that. That's what critics who've reviewed it call it. But it is numbered 060606 in the patent system. This gets into some esoteric type technology, like it's the blockchain, and but it is effectively a chip in your body, so that it's a way of generating currency while you do certain activities. So you could sit and watch advertisements. Some people, and there's bot farms in Africa where they take surveys or something. That's the type of technology it is. It's not clear what they plan to use this for, but it's a chip that allows you to generate, buy, and spend money that's implanted. So you can certainly see where the 666 references come from with that.
All the facts, all the footnotes, all the sources, all the quotes, it's all in the book. And then at the end, the solutions, page 267. Seamus, give me one. You have 7 here. Give me one thing that we can do. I think we feel so powerless, right? We hear about these controligarchs. We don't like it, obviously. We're conservative by nature, so we repel against it. But what do we do?
Yeah, it was pretty. This was a heavy research project going through all this stuff, and I got to the end, and it's like, what can you tell people that they can do when you're facing trillions of dollars? You're up against trillions of dollars. And you don't want to go tell people, well, just go get a cabin in the woods and learn how to homestead, although that's not a bad idea. But no, you need to jealously guard your wallet, and you need to know what your data. You need to jealously guard your personal data, especially that of your kids. You can't be letting them use these apps like TikTok and Instagram for kids. I mean, the Instagram's coming for kids, although the recent lawsuits are trying to stop Facebook from doing that. But I mean, you need to vote with your wallet on these things. You need to cancel the subscriptions. I know it's easier said than done, as I'm selling a book on Amazon, but it's you got to cancel the subscription. Stop giving them your money. We saw with Bud Light and Target that conservatives have real economic power when they band together. And you need to talk to your legislators and congressmen and tell them to ban your taxpayer money from funding these initiatives.
Yep. And then I like your 7th one, and I want to do some time on this week. But I love the 7th one. Buy everything we possibly can locally. So important to get back to that, the way it used to be. And then your first one is
summed up in 2 words. Buy local is very important.
Yeah, it really is, which is kind of a hippy dippy thing. But I'd like conservatives to take that and embrace it and make it our own. Because that is a major part of the answer. Seamus Bruner, Controligarchs. You can also go to Controligarchs. What's the website? Controligarchsbook.com. Controligarchsbook.com if you want to avoid evil Amazon. Controligarchs exposing the billionaire class, their secret deals, and the globalist plot to dominate your life. Seamus Bruner, well done. Years of research in this, man, and it shows. Every single page it shows. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Tremendous. Seamus Bruner right there. Again, the book Controligarchs. Go get it right now. We're going to do we got Mark Houck coming up next. We got to check